Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this first workshop, this first Econ Mentor workshop. Before we get started, can I just check with you guys if you can see me and if you can hear me properly? Can you just confirm in the chat box just to make sure that everybody can follow with us? Okay? Okay, perfect. Does anybody have any technical issue or any connection problem? Are we all good? Okay, that's perfect. All right, so as I was saying, tonight is, well, tonight, I guess most of you guys are in China, so this would be the evening. I know that some of you also come from the Middle East or from Africa, so good day to you guys. So today is an introduction to this latest project that I have developed over the last few months. And I will introduce this project to you. Please forgive my English. I haven't talked English for quite a long time now, so I'm a bit rusty. So I will speak slowly to make sure that you guys can understand me clearly. Okay, let's go. Let's get started. I'll just start by just saying a few words about me. I guess most of you have already perhaps used my resources, the PPTs that I have designed. Perhaps you have used the website that I designed for MCQs, but maybe some of you have never ever attended any of my webinars or used any of my resources. So I will very briefly say a few words about myself. So I am Sylvain Ours. I am from France originally. I am 32. I just turned 32 last month. I feel old already. So I am from Montpellier, which is in France. I received my PhD in economics in 2016. I worked on the economics of innovation. And since 2017, I live in China. I first lived in Xi'an for 3 years, and now I live in Chengdu. And I am an economics teacher. I started teaching A-level and AP economics. And this year, I also started to teach IGCSE. Okay, and I currently teach at the Malvern College of Chengdu, which is in the south suburbs of Chengdu. Beautiful school. And yes, a few years back, I created the website econdoctor.com, and I will briefly introduce some of it if you are not yet familiar with it. So I was told in the past that I tend to be too chatty to talk too much during this webinar. So today I will do my best to be as brief, as concise as possible. This first workshop is meant to be very practical. There are many things I want to tell you about tonight, many things that I want to share with you, and I'll try to do that as briefly as possible. And of course, if you want any further information, feel free to contact me, feel free to send me a message, and I will be happy to talk to you individually to give you more information. All right, so what is Econ Mentor? So it's a series of weekly workshops that I will lead only for AS and A2 economics teachers. So that's not for students. It's designed primarily for teachers to help you guys to deliver the syllabus. I have not enough experience teaching IGCSE, and that's why I don't feel ready yet to lead workshops for IGCSE, and I simply don't have time for everything as well. So for now, it's just weekly workshops. Why weekly? Simply because there are other workshops or webinars or trainings that you can attend to help you feel more confident about yourself when teaching the economics. But the problem is that these events tend to be, well, maybe once or twice a year. My objective really is to guide you throughout the entire school year, not just one workshop or one webinar in September and then, okay, good luck for the rest of the year. The idea here is really to accompany you every step of the way, from your very first lesson until the last week before the exam. And I truly believe that this is the most effective way for you to be able to gain confidence. I will go through the objective in a minute. Do you need to be experienced? No. It's suitable for new and experienced teachers. I will restrict the number of participants to 20 per workshop, simply to maintain the highest possible quality and to allow everyone to participate. And of course, you will be able to sign up for AS and A2 workshop. So tonight is a bit of an exception because this is the introduction, so it's open to everyone. There is no limit on the amount of participants, but next week for the next workshops that I will lead, these restrictions will be in place. The agenda, so for AS workshops, this is going to be every Wednesday from 7 to 9 p.m. Beijing time, and for A2 every Tuesday, same time zone as well. So the objective, I'm not going to read everything. If you are curious about the objectives of these workshops, you can have a look at all of them. But again, perhaps the most important one is the first one, is to boost your confidence when teaching AS and A2 economics. If there is something that I really hate as a teacher, is not feeling confident when I walk into my classroom, not feeling that I have a clear knowledge of the content, not feeling like I know exactly how to structure my lesson, not knowing how to support the students the best possible way. So to me, that's really, I want to make sure that everybody can feel confident, whether you are experienced or not, when teaching AS and A2 economics. And of course, I will share a lot of material, pretty much all the teaching material that I use myself with my students, to help you understand the critical skills, or highlight the critical skills. And of course, during every workshop, including this one, I will make sure that we have enough time at the end to have a Q&A session. So I will be able to answer any question that you may have. At least I'll do my best to answer any question that you may have. And this would also be the opportunity for you to be able to exchange with each other. Okay, not just being me talking and you listening. I hope that this can be a bit more interactive. So as to just like tonight, we'll use Zoom, something that's going to be very important. I will remind it to you guys next week, but make sure that the name that you display on Zoom matches the name in your profile on the website. I guess most of you have an account on the Econ Mentor website. And it's very important that the name that you display on Zoom is exactly the same as the one on the website. Otherwise, I will not be able to verify whether you have indeed signed up for the workshop, and I will not be able to allow you into the meeting. So make sure, starting from next week, not for tonight because this is a free event, but starting from next week, make sure that the name you display is the correct one. So again, tonight is a free event, but for the upcoming workshops, there will be a very small registration fee, which is going to be 50 RMB per workshop, or 7.5 euros for those outside of China. So I think we can agree that this is pretty cheap for a workshop. This does not mean that the quality is low. At least I will do my best to maintain the highest possible quality standard. But my objective is not to make a profit. My objective is simply to assist you as well as I can. Of course, I have some cost to maintain the website. My time also has an opportunity cost, as you know, so I just wanted to find the best possible balance between to make sure that everybody can attend these workshops. Right, so yes. Okay, and something that is extremely important, on the website, I will go through it with you in a minute, that there is a section that is called materials. Most of the documents that I will use during the workshops will be uploaded about a week before the event, and I strongly advise you to download these documents, PPTs, PDFs, and everything that I put online, so you can go through them in advance and you can prepare some questions. I actually give the same advice to my students, and I think that's very important to preview the content before the meeting, so you know what to expect and you know exactly what you want to ask. All right, let's just have a quick look at the website, just for me to highlight some key points. Okay, you should now see. All right, you should now see the website. Okay, so if you do not yet have an account on this website, and if you are interested in participating in the webinar starting next week, make sure that you go there. So it's ecomdoctor.com/mentor. You create an account, and then I just want to highlight what you can do again very briefly on this website. So you have an FAQ where again you have like a lot of information about the upcoming workshops. So feel free to have a look. If you have any question before asking me, make sure that the answer is not already on that page. You have the agenda with all the upcoming workshops. So this is the one. This is the current workshop. So you have information about the content. You have the Zoom ID and the Zoom password, and you have all the upcoming meetings. And this is where you can sign up. And actually, there is something else I want to show you. Just give me a second. I want to show you how to sign up. Let's just take a teacher account, because I realized that some of you did not sign up properly. So let's say you want to sign up, okay? You should see, if you are not already registered for the workshop, you should be able to click on sign up and then to confirm at the bottom of the page, register right here. Something that is very important if you want to send a payment for the upcoming workshops, it's very important that you give the code. There will be a code displayed on your screen. It is very important that you copy it when you send a payment through PayPal or through WeChat. And it's also very important that you confirm that you have sent the payment again. Otherwise, I might be unable to confirm or validate your registration. For each workshop, you will have a list of documents. So these are all the documents that I will use today. So you can freely download them. As soon as you have registered for a workshop, you will have access to all the documents used. So this is tomorrow's workshop as well. So I have not yet uploaded the document for next week's event. And you have your profile. So this was the name I told you about. Make sure that the name that you display on Zoom is exactly the same as the name that appears here, so I can make sure that you have indeed registered for the event. Okay, so feel free to navigate through the website, make sure that you know how to use it. And if you have any problem, feel free to send me a message so I can assist you. Okay, what else? So there are, when we start preparing some our lessons, we need resources. We need many resources to help us to design the best possible lesson. Here's a list of the resources that I have used myself and that I have found extremely useful. I'll just share my screen, it's going to be easier. These are the resources that I have used, and I do find them extremely useful to prepare my lesson. So I'm not going to go through each of them. So these are YouTube channels. I'm pretty sure many of you are familiar with Khan Academy, MR University, perhaps Jacob Clifford for those teaching AP Economics, Tutor2U. So all of them are pretty good YouTube channel. And to me, this has been the best source of information to help me to prepare my lessons. I really find this extremely valuable. And actually what I did, I downloaded all videos from these channels, and I put them on a memory stick, one for each student. And then at the beginning of the year, I give them this memory stick. So then if they want to watch, let's say, a video about the ASAD model, then they have plenty reliable, pretty interesting, well-designed video for them to review or to preview some content about the ASAD model. All right. If you have more channels that you like, feel free to type the name, to share the name of the YouTube channel in the chat box, and I'm sure everybody would benefit from this information. But these are the channels that I have used and that I've enjoyed the most. So these are for YouTube channels. Websites. So of course you have the Cambridge School Support Hub, where you can download the past papers. That's quite useful. You can also download some scripts from students. So I'm sure all of you have an account and all of you have access to the Cambridge School Support Hub. If it's not the case, talk to your, I don't know, your exam officer, whoever is responsible for the Cambridge curriculum, and you should be able to get a login and a password and to access these resources. Okay, and same thing, all these websites are websites that are particularly enjoy, could be for definitions like Investopedia, could be, or Wikipedia. I know a lot of people dislike Wikipedia, but I feel like overall the quality is pretty good. And all these websites are pretty useful to prepare your lessons. I also enjoy this one very much, The Curious Economist, which is a website where you can find many news articles that relate to economics. So if you really want to share some current economic events with your students on a weekly basis, for example, I strongly recommend you use The Curious Economist. Okay. So how about statistics and data? What if you want to talk about the classification of countries? You want to get some statistics, some data about international trade, about GDP, about unemployment. So these are a few websites where you can find reliable data. And you can actually invite your students to do the research themselves. Okay, you can give them some task. Let's try to find the latest unemployment figure for the United States or something like that, and you can give them these websites and see how well they do performing this research. So of course the World Bank, the IMF. This one is my favorite, the CIA World Factbook. And no, you do not need a VPN in China to access this website. OECD. Trading economics is also extremely interesting, and I will explain to you why later. But it has a lot of real-time statistics. So the US Bureau of Economic Analysis, the Federal Reserve Economic Data, you will find data about the United States. The UK Office for National Statistics, the ONS, you will find data for the United Kingdom. And Statista is extremely interesting because you can find the data, but you can also find some graphs. Well, they use the data to compile or to display some graphs, and that's extremely useful. So for each website, you have a link. So just click on that link, and you will access these websites. What else? So for PPTs, of course, I can recommend the ones that I have designed. And actually, I do not know many other PPTs for AS and A2 economics. I would be very happy to learn, to discover, or to see other PPTs that cover the AS and A2 syllabus. If you know any website or any author that has designed PPTs that cover the AS and A2 economics, again, feel free to share the information in the chat box. I feel like the ones that I designed are probably useful. I hope they are useful. They are very detailed, very comprehensive. Of course, you should not go through every detail with your students. Textbooks. I just checked the Cambridge website last week to double check which textbooks were still endorsed by Cambridge. And at the moment, there are only two. Harder Education, the book by Peter Smith, and the Bamford textbook that is printed by the Cambridge University Press. I honestly can't tell you much about this textbook simply because I have not used the latest editions. I feel like both of them are quite all right. But again, especially for the Cambridge University Press, I have not yet read the latest edition. So I'm not too sure about how good it is. But the previous editions were actually fine. So if your students have any of these two textbooks, well, that's pretty good, pretty concise, comprehensive, not many mistakes, clear diagrams, interesting examples. So these are good textbooks, even though I don't really use textbooks with my students. I feel like the information is just too much. So my job is just to, I read the textbook and I summarize the information for them to make it more accessible. For MCQs, well, of course, the students can use Econ Joker. That's the website that I designed this year. I'm not going to say too much for now because I will show it to you in a minute. And a dictionary, so this is still work in progress, but I am working on an interactive economics dictionary. I will show it to you, but it's not ready yet. And let's not forget the social networks. There are many WeChat groups, again, for those in China. Especially the Cambridge WeChat groups. There are two WeChat groups. There is a Cambridge 1 and Cambridge 2. Quite useful. If you have any question, just share it in the group, and there are hundreds of economics teachers that will be happy to help you. And if you use Facebook, again, there are many Facebook groups for economics teachers. Could be for A-level, for AS, for IB, for AP. And again, I have found these groups very useful anytime I was in doubt, anytime I had a question. They are very, very qualified, experienced, competent teachers using these groups every day, and they will be happy to support you. So I think with all these resources, you should be fine. You should be fine to design your lessons and to find any information and to be able to give your students information. Okay, feel free to give this information to your students, so those who want to go a little bit further, who want to go a bit beyond your lessons, they know where to find the information. All right, let's do something a bit more elegant and artistic. Hopefully, let's talk about classroom decoration, because well, this is the beginning of a new academic year. So you might want to do some artwork in your classroom. So again, I don't really know how things work in your school. Hopefully you have your own classroom, which is a dedicated economics and or business classroom. So you have the freedom to decorate it as you wish. I am lucky. I have my own classroom only for economics, and I have the possibility to do pretty much whatever I want in terms of decoration. And I do feel that this makes a great difference, you know, just to make it an economics classroom, not just a neutral classroom. To me, at least, it makes a difference. And I know that students were quite interested and attracted by all the decoration that I put together. So what do I have? So I have a big world map in the back of my classroom, and you know, around this world map I have information cards for various countries. I think I have 21 countries, I think. Economic indicators, demographic indicators. You know, this is the A2 this is part of the A2 syllabus. In chapter 5, if I remember well, on chapter 4, the macroeconomy, where you have the classification of countries, and students must be able to classify countries in terms of their economic indicators. And what I do is on a regular basis, I change the countries. So I remove everything. I prepare information cards for 20 or 30 additional countries, and I display this new information card. So I did it myself, but this is something that you can do with your students if you have some time. If your school expects you to organize some kind of group work or a project with your students, this is something that is that can definitely work. You can assign each group or each student 1 or 2 countries. You tell them where to find the information. You tell them which economic indicators, which demographic indicators to look, and then you ask them to prepare an information card, and then you can talk about the different countries. This is something that my students have always very much enjoyed in the past, and they like this world map. They like to go to the back of the room and to compare information from one country to the other. So I strongly advise you to do that. Of course, if you are in China, be careful what world map you purchase. I'm sure you understand what I mean. I also, this is one of the latest thing that I added on the right hand side. So this is the door to my classroom. And what I did is that I printed, no, these are not real banknotes, unfortunately. I printed the banknotes of the top 10 most traded currencies in the world. So I'm not sure exactly. We have the euro. It's not in order. The euro, the US dollar, the RMB, the Japanese yen, the British pound, the Canadian dollar. This must be the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. This is the Swiss franc, and I forgot one. Sorry, but you know, that's beautiful, isn't it? It's almost, I tried to make it again appealing so my students are happy to come into my classroom. Okay, this is something else that I designed. It's actually on the window of my classroom. So the most important diagrams. So on each page, you have one diagram and they form the word econ. Wow. So it took some time, as you can imagine, to draw everything, because I drew everything by hand, all these diagrams just on a standard colored paper, and then to organize them to form this word econ. It's, again, this is something that I did myself. I actually regret it. I think it would have been better to do it with the students. But again, this was the end of the academic year and I did not have enough time. I was still focused on exam preparation. So I decided to do it myself. But again, feel free to do that. You make a list of 30 to 40 diagrams for AS and A2 economics. You assign each diagram to one student or to each group of students. And then you make them put this on the wall, on the window. It doesn't really matter. This is how I did it. Okay, so this is how my door looks like from a bit closer. I've also displayed some quotes about economics. I will give you all these documents, by the way, okay? I will share with you all these documents, like the banknotes, the quotes and everything. You can download everything from the website. So these are quotes about economics. I like this one very much. The hardest thing in the world to understand is the income tax, from Einstein. They are not all the economists. You have one from the Harry Truman, give me a one-handed economist. Again, students seem to be curious about these quotes, and many of them relate to the syllabus. They relate to things that we have studied together. So that's always something that you can, that's something extra that you can bring to your lessons. So this is the first bulletin board. This is the second bulletin board. I'll let you have a look at all these quotes. This is what the windows looks like. And this is what I put on the top of my door. These are actually diagrams that I drew myself. Yeah, so I don't have a picture of what it looks like, but yeah, on above my the door of my classroom, I printed a big A3 page with this again to make my classroom a bit more personalized. I've also added in my classroom this big whiteboard where I list the price of currencies, stocks, and commodities. I started updating the values, the data every day, but then I realized that this was a bit too much. And, sometimes I was too busy in the morning to update the data. So I changed my mind and I decided to update the data only once a week, which is still reasonable. So what do I have? We have some currencies. We have the exchange rate between the RMB and the US dollar, the price of crude oil, gold, 1 ounce, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, some stock exchange index, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, coffee, commodities as well, the price of coffee, the price of copper, wheat and beef. Actually, let me show you something. You can pretty much put anything you want. And this is why I told you that I very much enjoy the website Trading Economics. I think it's just like that, tradingeconomics.com, because you can find pretty much anything you want in the data. Where is it? Okay, commodities, for example. You should see it here. You see, you have the data about energy, metals, agricultural commodities, livestock, industrial. You have the daily change, the weekly change, and so on. You have the price if it goes up or down. So you can choose any combination of these. I suggest you take one or two of each category, and again, you can just talk about it with your students. Say, hey, look, last week the price of wheat has increased by 5%. Can we understand the reason? And so on and so on. So yeah, this is something that I enjoy very much. My sitting plan. This is actually how I displayed my the desks in my classroom. It's pretty standard, right? There's nothing very original about this sitting plan. The only thing that is slightly different from a typical or from a standard classroom is that instead of having all desks, like facing the wall, being parallel to the wall, I've just rotated the desks on the sides slightly, so everyone in the classroom is essentially facing the same, the center of the board, just like in a theater. It's a very small change, but I feel it kind of makes a difference, because it's, like everyone is just watching at the same, in the same direction. And even myself, being in front of the students when the desks are displayed like that, I just enjoy it more. I feel like everyone is with me. And I also realize that this is something that can discourage students being a bit chatty. But maybe that's just an impression, but at least this is the sitting plan that I enjoy most. Feel free to experiment it, give it a try if you want to try that, and tell me what you think about it. In my school, we are very lucky because we have those amazing desks. So first, what's amazing about this desk is that they have wheels. Look at that you can lock, of course. So that's great if you want to do some group work, for example. That's very convenient to move the desks around the classroom. And what's even more amazing about this desk is that you can write on them. Like, the surface is actually washable. It's actually like a whiteboard. So the students can draw their diagrams, they can take notes. So why am I showing this to you? Because your department might have some budget. You might have some money that you can spend on stationery or whatever. So if you don't really know how to spend this allowance that you have, I strongly recommend that you suggest or that you ask your school to get some of these desks. They are a bit pricey, I've been told, but extremely useful. You know how often we use diagrams, and I just love these desks. In my classroom, I also have these small cupboards. And what I did, we don't really see that on the picture. I put some labels, because this was at the very beginning of the year and I had not yet put the labels. I put some labels on top of these shelves with the names of students. So then they can simply leave their documents, their textbooks, their notebooks, their PPTs and everything. So you don't run through the trouble of asking them every time, make sure that you bring all your material with you. They have everything in the classroom. I find this very, very convenient. So again, I don't know if you have enough storage in your classroom. If you do, well, that's perhaps something you can do. If not, well, maybe you can buy some shelves for your students to be able to leave their documents in your classroom. Okay. All right. Okay, something else that I do every month, actually, I ask my students to give me some feedback about how they feel about our lessons. Of course, the school does that more officially. Students are expected to give feedback about the teachers, about the lessons. The problem is that you usually don't receive the information directly from the students. And sometimes you don't receive any information at all from your head of department or from the school. So I like to collect the information myself. So let me show you what I designed. It should be there. Yes. So this is something that I added on my website. So yeah, students can just choose their group, all right? And then they have some questions, all right? I made some research to find out what would be the best combination of questions to ask the students. And I selected 20 of them. So there are 20 questions. It's quite quick, right? Because they only have to choose between strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. So these are some statements, and they have to choose their level of agreement. So these are closed questions. And then there are some open questions. What are the strengths of the course? What parts of the course aided you learning the most? Did you have specific recommendations? Blah, blah, blah. Is there some feedback? There are two reasons for which I do that. First, because I need their feedback to know how well I am doing, and to know if I am meeting their expectations, and if not, to know how I can improve as an educator. And this is also a signal that I send to my students by telling them, your opinion matters to me. I care about what you think. I respect your voice, and I will do my best to take into account your feedback. And if you want your students to show you respect, I feel like the most important thing to do is as a teacher is to treat them with respect, and showing them that you care about what they think is probably something that contributes to that. So you have the address of the website. You can have a look, of course. You can copy the questions. And if you want to set up this type of website or web page where your students can send you directly the information, then just send me a message and I will help you to set this up. I can even host your survey on my website to make it more convenient for you. I don't really like paper survey because it's difficult to guarantee that the answers are anonymous. But if you do that online, the students have complete trust. They trust that their answers will be completely anonymous. And I strongly encourage everyone to do that. Ask some feedback from your students. All right, what else? Then we have the Econ Joker website. I don't think it's necessary to spend too much time talking about it because I'm pretty confident that most of you have already used it. But let's just very, very briefly have a look at it. You should be able to see it. I promise I will not spend too much time talking about it. So this is a website where students can answer or practice questions from MCQs. All right, so the questions are organized by papers and they are organized by topics. It's a bit slow right now because we are having this workshop at the same time. So students can navigate by past paper, okay, and they can simply choose the answer, all right, A, B, C, and they immediately find out whether they have the correct answer or not. They can even answer some assignments that was designed by their teachers and so on. So this is the student side of the website. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this. And you can also log in as a teacher where you can track your students' performance. You can assign homework, you can design, well, there are many things that you can do on the website. And again, I don't want to say too much about it. What I strongly suggest you do, if you have never used this website before, just go to this page, econdoctor.com/joker, and then you click here to watch a video presentation. Okay, that's going to be much quicker because I have already recorded videos to introduce this website. So you can really just watch the videos and you will, well, have an overview of everything that you can do on that website. But this is really something that took me a long time to design, but it's definitely worth it. And I know that among us tonight, there are many of you who have used this website in the past. And well, I feel like this has been very useful for you, for your students. So again, I strongly encourage everyone to have a look at least at this Econ Joker website. This one is the website where you can download the PPTs, or especially the PPTs. How do you download PPTs from that website? Let's have a quick look at it. Sorry. Again, it's a bit slow. My apologies. This is the, all right, finally. All right, so if you want to download some PPTs, you simply click on resources, and then you just select the resource that you want. Let's say you want a PPT from A2 Economics about Chapter 3, Government Microeconomic Intervention, let's see, and you just search, and you will have all the PPTs available with an overview of the content, and then you can simply download the PPT. Of course, this is entirely free. There are also some videos, some PDFs. Well, just have a look at all these resources that you have there. They cover the entire AS and A2 syllabus, almost, and they should be quite useful. So again, econdoctor.com. Spend some time navigating this website so you can learn more about it. What else? All right, so let's let me share with you what I do during my first lesson. So that's always something that is a bit difficult. What should I do during my first lesson? I very often see these questions on social networks. So I'll just share with you what I do. I'm not telling you that this is the ideal way to approach this first meeting with your students. And actually, there is no ideal way. This is just my personal approach. Here we go. All right, so this is the PPT that I use. This is the PPT that I use with my A2 students. This is assuming that you have not yet met your students, okay? For example, someone else taught AS Economics, you teach A2 Economics, you have never met with the students. So I start by introducing myself. All right, of course, if you have already taught your students in AS or IGCSE, you can skip that. But if not, it could be for IGCSE, for AS, for A2, it's always a good idea to just start by, in order to break the ice, just to share a few things about yourself. And then what I do, so I talk about my country, I talk about my hometown, and then I play a true or false game with them, which is very typical, not very original, but always fun. I just ask them to guess. So I just give them some statements about myself, and I simply ask them to guess whether it's true or false. Just you can prepare 10 statements about yourself, and just try to make them guess whether this is true or false. All right, easy. Then I share my contact information to them. It's very important that they know how to contact you, where to contact you in the building, how to send you an email, Of course, there is a website. In some schools, you are allowed to use WeChat with your students. In my school, this is not really the case. We are not allowed to add our students on WeChat. So I did not share this information here, but you can find it below actually. All right. And then I go through the syllabus very briefly. Of course, I do not spend too much time on this, but I just describe very briefly what content we will discuss within each chapter, just like the summary of a book. Okay, I just tell them the summary of this big book that we are going to read together this year, so they know to expect, but not in a very detailed way. I give them some practical information. How many times are we going to meet every week? What's going to be the homework policy? What internal exams are we going to take together? And then, of course, most importantly, the summative assessment, the external examination, the Cambridge examination. They need to know the rules of the game, just like any game. If you want to win, you need to know the rules. So I explain how this works precisely, what is the content of paper 3, paper 4, what is the weighting given to each paper, what is the typical questions and so on. But again, I usually remain very brief. It's not necessary to spend too much time on this, but this is important for them to have at least on their first day some basic information about what the assessment will look like. Something that I feel is very important too is to talk about the assessment objectives. You know that for now there are 4 assessment objectives, which is going to be cut down to 3 in the new syllabus that will start in 2023 actually, examination in 2023. But again, it's important that you give them an overview, an outlook of what skills they must develop, what skills they must acquire this year in order to succeed during the examination. Again, remain brief, just say knowledge and understanding, it's essentially definitions. To simplify, of course. Application, it's essentially examples. Analysis, essentially logical relationships or cause and effect between if blah 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 then blah blah blah. You can give simple examples. And evaluation, just to acknowledge that the answer to a question is never yes always or no always. The answer is always it depends, and you need to be able to explain why the answer is it depends. What does it depend on? That's essentially the purpose of an evaluation. So these 2 PPTs, or these 2 slides, are designed for your students to know the rules of the game, how to succeed, how are they going to be assessed, and what skills do they need to develop in order to be able to have a good grade. Then I give them an overlook of what material we are going to use, what textbook, what PPTs, the mind maps and the summaries. I will tell you a bit more about that in the future workshops. The memory stick with the videos downloaded from the YouTube channels, the past papers. I actually do not print the past papers. I don't think this is necessary. And instead, I just upload them on the website and I just give them the link. So then they can download the past papers. I don't really see the point of printing past papers booklet with 300 pages or 200 pages for each student. I feel like this is mostly a waste of paper. I really don't feel like students need to have printed past papers. And then at that time, I give them a lot of documents. I do not really introduce them. I just tell them, we will have a look at these documents later. Of course, the syllabus with the list of command words, a list of acronyms, abbreviations, and notations that we use in economics, some 2 handouts on how to use diagrams properly, and 1 handout on how to write a good economics essay. All these documents are available on the website. So if you have signed up, if you have registered to today's workshops, you can go to the materials section. Let me just show you briefly where to find all these documents, perhaps because you have never done it before. So let me show you. It's just going to take a second. If you go to the material section over there, you will find all these documents, okay? 15 tips to use diagrams like a pro, the secrets of the perfect diagram, how to write a fine essay. You have past papers or essays organized by topics. This is an archive with all past papers since 2016. A student information sheet that you can ask your students to fill at the beginning of the year. The list of acronyms, abbreviations, and notations. The banknotes of the most traded currencies, the dollar sign. I'll tell you about the homework tracker, the information cards of 41 countries for you to be able to put besides the world map, the quotes about economics, the syllabus, and the test classification, which is something that I designed for evaluation. So you can download these documents. And this is at that stage of the lesson that I give them all these documents. But again, I just tell them that we will talk about it later. Then I give them some advices to succeed. To me, there are 4 things that you should tell to your A2 students. The first one is only valid for A2 students. I tell them, of course, to review what they have learned in AS. I strongly advise them to learn how to take notes. And I explain to them why. To show your team spirit, students are not really competing against each other. And it's always much better if your group of students can work together, can show some cooperation. And of course, I expect them to come prepared to every lesson. And I again explain what does it mean? What does it mean to come prepared to every single lesson? Then I tell them what the class rules are. Again, it's important that they know the rules of the game on how to succeed in the examination. But it's also important that they know the rules of the game on how to behave as you expect in your classroom, all right? Your classroom, your rules. So these are the rules that I share with them. So of course, you should make it clear about whether or not they are allowed to use their electronic devices. Of course, this depends on the school policy. In some schools, it's forbidden. On some schools, it is allowed. In some schools, it's up to you. But make sure that this policy is very clear at the beginning of the year. Some rules about homework, not being late, making sure not to talk when you are talking or when other students are talking. I really don't like it when students bring food or drinks within the classroom. I do not accept late students. I really hate it when students are sleepy. So to me, that's a really big no, and it's completely unacceptable in my lessons. And of course, I encourage everyone to participate. Make sure these class rules are clear to everyone at the beginning. I know some teachers actually ask their students to sign something, like some kind of agreement. I don't think this is necessary, but make sure the rules are clear to everyone. And then I make a list of the stationery that everybody should get. I don't really need mini whiteboards because, as I showed you earlier, I already have the desks on which the students can write. But if you do not have those washable desks, then of course, your students should definitely get those mini whiteboards so they can practice diagrams in class. They can also answer MCQs. If you practice MCQs in class, they can simply write the answer on the mini whiteboards and then they can show you their answer. So it's much quicker to see everyone's answer rather than just going through the alleys to see if everyone got the right answer or not. In terms of their folders, this is really what I like best. Sorry, this one, yeah. To me, that's the best, you know, with these transparent sleeves. So as soon as you give them some new handouts, then immediately they can just put this new document in their folder and they are not going to lose it. So that's my personal favorite. Of course, okay, eraser, highlighter, blah, blah, blah. Notebooks, I use 2 notebooks, one for notes, one for homework. All right, that's pretty standard. And of course, a ruler for their diagrams. Okay, that's about it. And usually if I have some time left, because it's always a good habit to have something ready in case you have some time left, I have some questions from AS, from the AS part of the syllabus. So it's a good way to warm up before you actually start the A2 content if you have some time left. All right, so this is actually how I organize my first lesson with my A2 students, and it's very similar, of course, with my AS students. All right, let's get back to the main PPT. Let me tell you a few things about, sorry. Here, let me tell you a few things about my homework policy, and I really believe that this is gonna save you a lot of time. First, I use what I call, maybe there is a better name for it, but I call it a homework tracker. A homework tracker is simply a document that I display at the entrance of my classroom, just a typical A4 page where I list the upcoming homework with the deadline and what they have to do, what is the task, and when is the deadline. So then when a student, is late, that student doesn't have the excuse of saying something like, oh, I forgot, I thought the deadline was Thursday, I thought the deadline was Friday. No. This is displayed at the entrance of the classroom. There is no excuse. And same thing for the task. Oh, I thought we only had to complete the MCQ from that paper. I forgot I had to do from the other paper. Same thing. The task is clearly displayed. Let's see if I can show it to you. It's a very simple document. Again, you can download it. It just looks like that. So you have like the group, the task, and the deadline. All right. What I do, of course, because I'm not printing this every time or every week for every task. So what you can do is to laminate it. Okay, you print this piece of paper, you laminate it, and then you can just write on it with a marker, like a whiteboard, a washable marker. And then once the homework is finished, you just erase it and just write the new homework, the upcoming homework. So you don't have to print this page all the time, right? That would be such a waste of time. So I strongly advise you guys to use this type of homework tracker. To me, this has proven extremely useful. I do not accept late homework. That's, this, unless of course there is like a good reason. A student was sick or had like some kind of emergency or something like that. But on apart from these exceptional situations, I really never accept late homework. I do not accept it if it is incomplete or poorly presented, especially the second. If it's poorly presented, to me, this is really a lack of respect. So I just say, no, you do it again, you apply yourself. Do not give me something that is with a very bad handwriting or that is written on a piece of paper that is in very bad condition. No, they have to apply themselves. Their homework has to be very neat. All right, of course, I do not accept homework that clearly shows that students have just copied the content of the PPTs or the content that they have found on websites. And actually, I do not really assign a lot of homework for two reasons, simply because I want to give them enough time to do a good job. If you give them too much homework, it's likely that the quality of their homework will drop. And also because I always do my best to give them some feedback, individual feedback, detailed feedback, and I always try to type the key to any piece of homework. And of course, this takes time, a lot of time. And so if I give them 3-4 essays to write every week, this is just impossible for me to keep up. So I give a relatively small amount of homework, but in exchange, in return, I really tell them that I expect high quality from them. And that's why I can refuse homework that is not up to my standards. So I usually give them 1 full week to complete a piece of homework, again, so they have no excuse of saying, oh, I did not have time to do it. In 1 week, you have time to organize yourself and to do a good work, to find enough time to do a good job with your homework. So for MCQs, okay, just a few advices for MCQs. I actually hate to mark MCQs on paper. So that's actually the reason for which I created Econ Joker. To me, this was such a waste of time to mark MCQs on paper. I feel useless when doing this. So I created the website. And again, I strongly encourage you to do that. You can find here some advices on how you can discourage cheating if the students use the website to complete the homework. And this is extremely important. And again, I strongly encourage you to do that. At the end of each chapter, I ask my students to prepare a summary or a mind map of the key points. And then what I do is that I select the best work. I print it for everyone. Okay, so everyone has a copy of the mind map or the summary that I like the best. And I also display it on a dedicated bulletin board in the back of my classroom. So, well, you know, the student whose work has been selected to be displayed is usually quite proud to see his or her work displayed on the wall. But why this is very important is that my PPTs are very detailed, and I know that the students will be completely unable to review very efficiently at the end of the year if they only use the PPTs. There is just too much information. So instead, it's important that they do this work of summarizing the key ideas at the end of each chapter when it's still fresh in their mind. And then, of course, they will be very, very, very happy to have these documents available when they review for the internal examinations, but also when they review for the Cambridge exam. I don't know if I have examples of mind maps that were prepared by my students. Let me just give me 1 second. I don't know. Maybe not on this computer. No. All right, never mind. But yeah, very, very important thing that you should definitely do with your students. What else? So for homework, okay, something else. Sometimes your students will send you homework by email. I hate it when I receive a blank email. I really feel that this is quite rude to send a blank email to your teacher. So it's always important that you remind them to write something like, "Dear Mr., dear Mrs., please find attached my homework about blah, blah, blah. Have a good day. Regards, name of the student." All right, that's just being polite. You do not send a blank email to your teacher. I really hate it when I receive this type of email. Make sure that, again, this is going to save you a lot of time. Make sure you make it clear that you only accept certain types of documents. For example, in my case, I only accept doc and PDF files. I do not accept scans or pictures of their homework, because in that case, I cannot give feedback. Right, on Word, on doc files, PDF files, it's very easy to give feedback on the document, but on pictures, it's really complicated. So simply tell them, do not take pictures of your work. I will not accept that. Something that you should also tell your students is, do not send me 5 pictures for the same piece of homework. That makes your job very complicated, doesn't it? Just ask them 1 file per homework. If you have several, I don't know, several documents, just merge them together. So again, for you, it's much easier to track or to make sure you don't lose anything. And finally, ask your students to clearly name the file, okay? Not just economics, because if all your students, they name their file economics, then you're going to end up with 10 economics PDF or doc files, and that's going to be very complicated to remember, okay, who sent me this file? Or you will have to rename the files yourselves, and that's just not your job to do it. So make sure that you give a certain format you give them a certain format for the name of the file, and make sure that they respect, that they stick to this format. In particular, the file name should have the name of the student. So you know who sent you this work. It's much easier. Something else that I find extremely important for you to do, just to make sure that your students are organized, every other week, every couple of weeks, I check their folders. So I ask the students to bring their folders to my lesson, and I collect them every other week twice to make sure that they have everything. So I check whether they have all the PPTs, all the handouts clearly organized. And I make sure that they take enough notes on the PPTs, on their notebooks, again, as a way of assessing their how serious they take the lessons and how much attention they pay during the lesson. Looking at how much notes they take is a pretty reliable indicator. So please do it, because otherwise you're going to end up with students who are missing 50% of your handouts, and you will have to reprint everything else. Everything is going to be completely disorganized, and you will have to use your lunch time to help your students to organize the content. And then students will have no notes taken, and they will realize that they don't really remember the content, and they will no longer remember the concept. And this is going to make it much more difficult for them to prepare for the exam. All right, this is my homework tracker that I just showed you. And that's about it. So on the website, again, if you have registered to today's webinar, today's workshop, then you will have all these documents, the banknotes, the past papers, the quotes, the handouts on diagrams, how to write a good essay, the test classification for evaluation, the student information sheet if you want to collect some information about your students at the beginning of your first lesson, the PPT that I use during my first lesson, the door sign, this dictionary of acronyms, abbreviations, and notations, the homework tracker, the syllabus for 2022, the country information cards, the current PPT that I am using. And as soon as this workshop will be over, I will upload the video recording as well. All right, so what time it is? It is, yeah, 8 past 8. That's pretty good. I hope I was brief enough. You see, there was quite a lot of content that I went through with you today. So now we have some time for, a Q&A session. So let me just go through the chat box because I was a bit busy and I did not have enough time to read your messages. So if you have any questions, you can either type it in the chat box, or you can, even better, you can unmute your mic and you can talk to me directly to ask me any question that you may have. But first, let me just go through what you wrote on the chat box to make sure I did not miss any question. Okay, thank you for your feedback, everyone. So for those who have not, I see Stephanie, you said if you have not registered for today's lecture, what I'm going to do, okay, you know what? Let's just do that. All right, everyone, please have a look at the chat box, because today is a bit special. All right, I have shared a link in the chat box. You see that? econdoctor.com/docs. So for now, it doesn't work, okay? But as soon as this workshop is going to be over, I'm going to create this folder and I'm going to upload all the files. So then even if you have not registered for today's webinar, then you can still access the files, okay? What is my usual lesson plan in 40 minutes? So that's a question from May. Do you print PPTs for your students for every lesson? From Deepak. Okay, so yes, I print PPTs for my students for every lesson. I do. But I actually have two versions. I have two versions of my PPTs. Let me show you the difference. Because I have one, you probably know, if you have already used my PPTs before, you know that I do something a bit, I don't know, special. I like to have several slides for each diagram. Let me share it here. For example, here you see this is I start with the axis and the PPC, blah, blah. So you see you have like several PPTs, slides for one particular diagram. And I do that for every single diagram. Of course, when I print my PPT, I do not print the slides with all these steps because this would be too much paper. So I have a second version for students. Let me show you the difference. All right, this is the students version. So you see now I only have one. Only have one slide for the diagram. So it's one way to make sure that I do not print 200 pages. So yes, I print the PPTs for every lesson.
Can you also get the student version of PPTs?
Say that again.
Can you get this student version of PPTs as well? Have you uploaded to your website?
Yes, this is something that I have in mind. It's a very good suggestion. Now, it's true that for now, if you go to the website, you can only download the teacher's version with all the steps, right? But something that I'm going to do, let me show you. Something that I'm going to do very, very soon, probably this week, if I have time. When you click on resources, if you click on PPTs, okay, doesn't matter which one, you will have the choice. If you have like efficiency, you will have download teacher version, and will have another link, download student version. So then you will be able to download both, and you will be able to directly print the student version without having to edit it, without having to remove the slides of the different steps. Or sometimes, sometimes there is what I call the practice time, where there are some questions, and I have also written the answers. In the student version, of course, the answers have been removed. So that's probably something that's going to help you to save some time. All right, so do I print everything? Yes, okay. What is my usual lesson plan? So the truth is that I don't have a lesson plan, simply because my PPT is my lesson plan. But what I can tell you, May, is that I always start my lessons with at least five minutes reviewing what we've done previously. And of course, this is where I ask a lot of questions to the students. I say, okay, Bobby, do you remember what we did last time? Do you remember what we call crowding out? Jenny, can you tell me what is done? Okay, just to warm up, because if you start with the new content right away, it's going to be a bit difficult for them to be able to follow right away. It's always good to spend sometimes a bit more, 5-10 minutes, just reviewing what we've done previously. Apart from that, it really depends. I tend to be quite flexible. I adapt to my classroom. It depends on how my students are doing. It depends on whether they ask some interesting questions. That's, sometimes you have a plan, you want to do something during the lesson, but then you have one student that asks you a great question that is not exactly related to what you are doing, but I feel like it's worth it to spend some time answering. So sometimes I bend my plan a little bit so I can take into account what my students are bringing to the lesson. They are active, they are actors in my lesson. It's not just me teaching them. We are talking, exchanging. So I do not have any specific lesson plan. The only thing, again, that I do every time is just to spend like 5 minutes reviewing what we've done before. All right, let me just go through the other questions or comments in the chat box. So Chloe, yes, I received your message. You can just click on the link maybe in 1 or 2 hours, and you will have access to the documents. How do you deal with the fact that most of your students don't speak English as a native tongue? Well, that's quite easy. I speak slowly. Well, tonight I did not speak slowly, but I speak very slowly to them. I use simple words. There is no need to, use fancy English to make long, complicated sentences. And I do repeat myself a lot. I explain something one way, then I explain it in another way, then I explain it in a third way. And again, repeating myself is probably what I do best to make sure that they can keep up. Usually in my school for AS and A2, English is not so much of an obstacle, not so much of a barrier, but for IGCSE, of course, it's more challenging. It's more challenging because some students have lower English proficiency, and that makes it more challenging for them. So again, I tried, even if you look at my PPTs, I try to use the sentence that I make, they tend to be simple. I try at least to make them as simple as possible. And I speak slowly, I repeat myself a lot. And usually what I do, and I'm lucky to do some co-teaching. So I am a foreign teacher, but I work with a Chinese teacher. For example, for AS this year, we had 6 lessons per week. I had 3 lessons with the students, and my Chinese colleague had 3 lessons with them. So if they did not understand something in my lesson due to some kind of an English problem, then they could probably understand it with my Chinese colleague. So for AS and A2, I did not have much issues with English. What else? Do you have advice for setting up your grading criteria? Not really, Beryl. Not really. Again, I like to be flexible because I for internal examinations, I do understand that we need some form of consistency in the grading criteria. But I'm not sure I understand your question well. Do you mean the thresholds for the ABC grades? What criteria do I use to determine if a student's work is good or not? And if this is what you mean, perhaps we need to have a dedicated workshop on that, because there would be so much to say about this. But for the grading, for the thresholds between A, B, C, Ds, I usually start with something like 80% is an A star, 70% is an A. And then if I have a very strong group of students, I can, make it more challenging to get an A start, to keep them entertained, to keep them engaged. Otherwise, if they always have A's or A stars, they will feel like it's too easy. And on the other hand, if I have a group of students who is a bit weak, I tend to lower the threshold, make it easier to get an A or a B or a C, simply to keep them motivated. Can you imagine if you have like students who really struggle, but they work hard, but if they constantly get E's and U's, they're going to be discouraged. So I feel like it's a better approach to, inflate their grades a little bit for internal examinations, just for them to remain confident, to believe they can make it. So they will work hard for the entire academic year. How do I deal with very weak students in class? Very weak students, it's usually a bit difficult. And I've had this problem this year because I had very strong students and very weak students in the same group. And schools always expect us to differentiate, to implement differentiation. And it's always easier to say than to actually implement. The best way that I use to differentiate is really through questioning. So I try to say the easiest questions in class for the weaker students, so they can actually answer and they can build up confidence. For homework, I tend to have low expectations, and I will praise them even if they do not do a very, very good job. I will reward the effort rather than the outcome itself. if I can really see that they have tried, that they have put enough time and energy in their work, and even if the output is not very satisfying, I will really do my best to encourage them. I also usually schedule some additional lessons, optional lessons for students to attend if they want to. Okay, this is not something that I want to be mandatory. So I usually schedule 2 classes, 2 additional classes per week. So weaker students can join and we can go through the content again at a different pace, at a lower pace. Of course, not all of them will come, but those who will come are those who really want to work and who at least want to try. Honestly, I don't really care if my students are very weak. What I really don't like is students who don't try. And I would rather have a group of very weak students, but very willing students, rather than a group of very able students, very strong students, but who have a pretty poor attitude towards learning, who, just don't work as hard as they should. Yeah, that's what I can tell you for now, Deepak, about how to deal with very weak students. How do you make sure they can get an A star? I can't. When you have very, very weak students, you cannot always make sure they get an A star. And sometimes make sure they get a D, make sure they get a C is already a success. And we sometimes have to be realistic about the abilities of our students, even if they tried extremely hard, even if you do your best to support them. Not everybody can get an A star. You can be a great teacher and do everything you can for that. I really see my job as making sure that the students reach their full potential, but reaching their full potential does not mean getting an A star all the time. How did I download videos from YouTube? It's actually quite simple. You just go on Google and I think it's called YouTube Converter. I forgot the name of the website, and my VPN is off, so I cannot really show you, Scott, but just type on Google download YouTube video, and well, you will find plenty of websites where you can do that for free. But it's a bit tedious if you do that one by one. There is actually a software that you can use. I forgot the name of this software, where you can download a channel altogether. And this is what I use to download all the videos from all these channels. So you download the software. Again, I forgot the name and I cannot Google it right now. You just paste the address of the channel. This is going to list all the videos inside the channel or inside the playlist. And then you just select which ones you want to download, and boom, it's going to download all these videos for you. What's the duration of my weekly workshops, Monica? That's going to be 2 hours. 2 hours, well, approximately, all right? It's likely to be a bit longer, I guess. It depends. And it's going to start next week, Tuesdays for A2, Wednesdays for AS, and we'll stop during the Chinese holidays. Just have a look at the agenda. For now, I have only added the microeconomics workshops on the website. I will add the macroeconomics workshops in a few weeks. So we start next week on Tuesdays for A2, on Wednesdays for AS. What class activities do you use to get them participate during class? I honestly, I'm not the type of teacher who uses a lot of activities in my classroom. I don't really have a lot of games with them, or I do that sometimes, but honestly, it doesn't happen that often. How do I get them to participate? I just try to make my lessons interesting. If you make your lessons interesting, especially using real life examples, I often talk about I often relate my life experiences with, with the content of the lessons. That's enough to keep them engaged, and they want to know more, and they will ask you questions, and then using their questions, you can build up on what they have said, and you can add some additional information about the topic, about the concept. And I've never really, well, I should not say never, because I've had some groups of students that just did not participate much, or you've probably had these groups of students before where you have like a few students, 2-3 students who are very, very active, and the rest of the group is incredibly passive, and you can try as hard as you can and they will just free ride on those who are driving the lesson. And this is a bit difficult to work with these groups of students. But essentially, I do not have a lot of activities, May. And if you look at my PPTs, you will not find so many activities, so many simulations, as they say in AP. So yeah, how do I get them to participate? I ask them a lot of questions. Like, I don't know, maybe 40 questions during one lesson. That's really my type of teaching. I think we call that inquiry-based learning, right? I've never really studied education, so I'm not very good at the theory of education, but I just use questioning a lot to keep everyone engaged. Some questions just to test some knowledge, some questions to just, wake up those who are, those who start to not pay attention anymore. Some questions to the higher ability students to challenge them. That's how I keep my lessons interesting, and using a lot of real life examples from the news, current events, and just to try to make them curious about stuff. Say, hey, what do you think of that? Do you think we should? And just to get them thinking about economics related stuff, and just building up a good relationship with them. So when they walk into your classroom, they are actually quite happy to see you, just like I'm happy to see them. And so yes, it's a course, it's a lesson, but it's also an exchange between me and them. And naturally, you will not have to force anything to make them participate. They will gladly contribute to the lessons. Again, it doesn't always work, but from experience, it works most of the time with most groups of students. So Stephanie, yes, the website, I will create this folder where you will be able to find the documents. Deepak, are students bored when they just listen to the PPT lecture? Actually, I don't really use, my answer is going to be a bit weird. I don't really use my PPTs during my lessons. Yeah, I display them on the board, but I don't read the bullet points. I don't go through the bullet points, because you're right, Deepak, this would be very boring, and especially because the PPTs are very detailed, right? So I use them especially for diagrams, because this way I don't have to draw the diagrams again. For examples, and simply because they help me to remember the structure of the lesson. Okay, I tried to organize the PPTs in a very logical way. I tried to think of the best way to go from one point to the other, so it's actually easy to understand. But I don't really stick to my PPTs very closely during the lessons. I ask my students to go through the PPTs together I ask them to go through the PPT before the lesson. Of course, they don't always do that, but at least I try to. I encourage them to do so, and I encourage them to take notes on the PPT. And what I do during the lesson, instead of going through the entire PPT, I only highlight the key ideas, and I ask them to always keep a highlighter with them. And I tell them, oh, in this slide is very important. You need to know that to help them distinguish between the critical knowledge, what is extremely important for the examination, and what is not so important. And inside my PPTs, you know that sometimes, let me try to show you, sometimes there is a star. Let me try to find, yes, like this one. here with the one step further star, again, just to tell them, hey, that's, that could be interesting, but this is not something you need to know for the exam, just to help them to, again, distinguish what content is very important and which one is not, a bit less important for the examination. To cover, so yeah, don't stick to the PPTs. Use the PPTs to support your lessons, but do not stick to the PPTs. Do not go through each bullet point. Otherwise, it's likely that your lessons are going to be very, very boring. How do you cover all the topics of the syllabus so that they are ready for the external exams? Well, I guess it really depends on schools, but in my school, we are quite lucky because we have enough time. We have 6 classes per week, 45-minute lessons per week for AS and A2. And actually for the coming school year, we have 7 lessons per week. So that's pretty good, right? 7 lessons per week for AS and A2. To me, that's enough. That's definitely enough to cover the entire content. It's more challenging for A2 than for AS. I do not spend time on MCQs in my lessons for several reasons. First, because the MCQ paper 3 is the last paper in June, and I feel like students will have plenty of time to prepare for paper 3 once they are done with their other exams. And because this is really something they can do at home, especially because they use the website, the Econ Joker website. So I just don't waste time practicing MCQs during my lessons. I just ask them, all right, to do this as homework. I track their progress, and I really focus on data responses and on essays. That's the only type of homework that I assign, at least that I mark myself, data responses and essays. And yeah, I feel like this is enough. I usually finish the syllabus quite late, around mid-April, beginning of April or mid-April. I know in some schools, teachers tend to finish the syllabus much earlier, but then I just don't want to rush. I'd rather spend some time, enough time for them to really understand the content, to have enough time to prepare summaries, to have enough time to practice MCQs, to practice essays as we go through the content, rather than just rushing through the syllabus, overlooking some important things, not giving enough time for the students to practice and to truly master the knowledge. And then I feel like this is enough. Yep. Will 23 A-level students will do exchange rates and BOP in AS and A-level 2? Actually, I'm not sure. This is something that I will do. I will put together a document that will compare the current syllabus with the new syllabus to identify what has been removed and what has been added. I have not yet analyzed that very precisely, so I cannot really answer that question yet. Will do exchange rate and BOP? Well, in AS and A2, well, I don't think these topics have been removed from the syllabus. Maybe they have been moved from AS to A2, maybe. Again, I don't know. Maybe they have been moved from one year to the other, but
Mr. Sylvian,
yes.
My question is 2022 students will AS level students will have exchange rate and BOP. The same students will go for A level 2. So there also will they be studying exchange rate and BOP?
Well, your students who start AS this month or next month will learn the exchange rate and the balance of payments, correct? In AS, because this is part of the current AS syllabus. So then your question is, can this be tested in 2023 during the A2 examination? Is this your question?
Yes, yes.
Well, the A2 examination covers the entire AS and A2 content, right? Even though the A2 examination is more focused on the A2 content, some questions might require understanding of the AS content as well. For example, there are many A2 essay questions about fiscal, monetary, or supply side policy, which is currently AS. So again, I should double check, but I really assume, I'm pretty confident that your new AS students will be tested on the entire AS and A2 syllabus next year, including exchange rate and BOP, regardless of whether this has been moved from AS to A2. But again, I haven't yet looked very closely at the new syllabus. So I would rather have a closer look at it before giving you a definite answer about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Stephanie, when can I use the website that, All right, Stephanie, the folder will be created as soon as the webinar ends today. Okay, however, the students are going to be assessed on their essays, so their language on essays is key. Yes, okay, so I guess you typed this message when we talked about English skills. Yes, their language on essays is key. Yes and no. What I learned during when I attended Cambridge workshops or Cambridge trainings, what the trainer told us is that they are not really assessed on their English proficiency as long as we can understand what they mean. They will not lose marks if, well, at least in theory, they will not lose marks if they make mistakes, if there could be grammar mistakes, spelling mistakes, at least in theory. However, this has an impact on the psychology of the examiner. It's true that if you mark an essay or if you read a data response that is written in a very, very good English, a very clear English, that makes it way more comfortable to read and to mark than if you mark an essay or data response that is written in a broken English. So it's true that we should always encourage our students to apply themselves language-wise when writing. And the advice that I give them is to make simple sentences. You know, that's not time to show off. They should show off by showing their economics skills. It's not the time to show off trying to write long sentences using fancy expressions that I don't really master. Short sentences, simple sentences, and I usually tell them one sentence should tell one thing. Okay, one sentence equals one piece of information. So yeah, the language is key. It's true that essays, data responses that are written in a good English, easy to read, will essentially make the job of the examiner much easier. And at the end of the day, this can have an effect on the final grade. Also, key terms should be spelled properly. Spelling mistakes on standard words like, I don't know, something like a table or no, like it's no big deal. But if students write economics of scale instead of economies of scale, or when they make spelling mistakes on keywords, that might be a problem. So usually I don't pay attention when they make mistakes on like random words, but when they make spelling mistakes on keywords, economics keywords, then that's a problem. Okay. So yes, if you are unable to attend a workshop you have registered for, you will still be able to watch the video. Okay, as soon as the workshop will be over, I will upload the video, and if you have registered for the workshop, you will be able to watch the video recording. You will simply have to click on the materials section of the Econ Mentor website, and you will be able to watch the stream the video. You will not be able to download the video though, you know, otherwise it would be a bit too easy. You could just share the video to everyone regardless of whether or not they have paid for the workshop. So you will only be able to stream the video on the website as soon as the workshop is over. Will you have some lessons for AS essay writing? Yes, there will be some workshops dedicated to essay writing, but later in the year. Right now, it's too early to teach your students how to write essays. This will come pretty soon, but for now it seems a bit early. So I will schedule this type of workshops later in the year. Will I keep on uploaded slides on eConductor? Yes, I will. For especially for AS, you know that for AS the many slides, many PPTs are missing for chapter 1. And I am currently working on creating these PPTs for chapter 1. This should be ready within a week or 2. So you will have these new PPTs, these updated PPTs for chapter 1 for AS. And for A2, there is not much missing, but yes, there are a few PPTs missing for the end of, for the last chapter. So it's going to be uploaded, but later in the year. How many minutes do you talk in a 40-minute lesson? I talk a lot, maybe too much. And this is something that, sometimes when my lessons were observed by my head of department or by the school principal, they sometimes told me that I worked too hard, that I should learn how to step back. And I agree with this. This is probably something that I have to work on. It's very difficult to answer this question because it varies a lot, but I do talk a lot. So I would say out of a 30-minute lesson, probably 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. So I guess it should be less, but it really depends. But it's a good question though, Deepak, because it's true that we should try to make sure we don't work too hard. We should make sure that we leave enough time and room for the students to do the job. Okay, so sometimes don't feel like you are a bad teacher if you stop talking and if you tell them, all right, do this. And you just step back, you let them do the work, you support them. Sometimes we feel guilty. We feel like, oh, I'm not doing my work properly. No, you are definitely doing your work properly if you let them work. So it's all about finding the right balance. It depends on the content of your lesson, of course. But yeah, learning how to step back is definitely something that I should work on myself to become a better teacher. All right. Your workshop timing clashes with my school timings. Well, we have lessons during those hours. How could this be resolved? Unfortunately, the only option for you would be to watch the video recordings. If you are still interested in attending these workshops, even though you are unfortunately unable to attend these workshops live and to ask questions during the events, then you will still have access. If you register for the workshops, you will still have access to all the documents, you will still have access to the video recording. And then if you have questions, you are, of course, very welcome to send me a message, send me an email or a message on WeChat or whatever. And I will be happy to send you an individual answer to any question that you may have about the workshop that you watched. All right, one of my weakest students just got a D at A2. He worked his butt off for that D. Well, that's not bad. Yeah, if you got like a student, if you started the year and with that students who got like U's or E's for like the entire first term, and if that students end up with a D or C, well, I really see that as a win. You really help them to improve, and you should not feel guilty if they did not get an A star. And I hope your school will appreciate that they have actually improved a lot. So yeah, like I had this year, because yes, today is a big day, right? Today you receive the results for AS and A2, and I do hope your students did a good job the AS and A2 examinations, and I hope you are satisfied by their results. And some of my students did actually really well, but that doesn't mean that they got A's or A stars. I had a few students who got B's, and I was actually very happy that they got B's, because this was definitely not something that was granted. Because as we started the academic year, they started with closer to a D, sometimes closer to an E. And, you know, like moving from a D or an E to a B is actually quite an accomplishment, and I'm very proud of them for that. Can we also get the downloaded videos? You cannot download the videos, the video recordings. You can only stream them on the website. Well, unless you find a smart way to download them, because of course it's always impossible to completely protect videos online, but they are not meant to be downloaded because they are not meant to be shared. They are only meant to be watched by those who have registered for the events. In the PPTs, there are no real world examples. No, actually the real world examples, I just tell them orally, and they just take notes, because the real world examples, you know, they are very often current events. And I don't really want to update my PPTs every year to modify, to give new current events. So that's why you do not have real world examples. So it just depends on what I have read in the news. I read a lot. I read a lot of, well, I don't know, it could be newspapers. I watch the news. And of course, when I teach something, I very often think of a piece of information that I recently came across. And I just share that information with them. And they note it. They take note on their PPTs. That's why you will not find them inside the PPTs. Yes, May, about class activities. Sometimes it works. It depends on your students, of course. You will have some groups of students that are going to be very responsive to class activities and to group work. But sometimes for some particular content or with particular groups of students, honestly, we have to be honest about it. It's mostly a waste of time. You're going to spend 40 minutes on something that they could understand in 5 minutes. If you had just used a more traditional way of teaching, all right. But sometimes students are not very, you know, good at group work. They're going to be chatty. You will have so many students free riding. Sometimes the activities are very fun. Yeah, and that's usually the problem I have with activities, simulations. They are fun, but when you think about how much content there is, how much they learn, like playing that activity, that game, playing that simulation, doing this activity, well, it's actually not much, right? So that's why I'm usually very reluctant to use class activities. I do a few, for example, for the spending multiplier, for the money multiplier, for the law of diminishing returns. I have some activities that I like, that I designed, and I think they're effective. I think they are fun, and I think that they actually have some content. I really believe the students actually learn something about it, and it's just not a waste of time. But of course, I do not always do these activities with all my groups. I only keep these activities for the group with whom I know that it's going to be effective. Most of the time it is. All right, all right. How do I improve my students' evaluation and analysis skills? That's a very good question, and we will have dedicated workshops for that. Because how to write an evaluation, how to make an economic analysis, it is a very tough job. What you can do is to go on YouTube. Okay, let me show you what you can do. Again, I don't have my VPN on, so I cannot actually show you on YouTube. But if you go to the website econdoctor.com, just scroll down and you will find the, where is it? No, I don't have it here actually. Sorry, let's just, let me go back. All right, you see there is the YouTube logo. If you click there, it's not going to work because I don't have the VPN, but you will access my YouTube channel. And there is one video that is called how to write a fine essay or something like that, how to write an economics essay, which is a workshop that I delivered for Cambridge. And in this workshop, I give some advices on how to teach analysis and evaluations. So you can start there. You can start having a look at this video. You can also have a look at the test classification. I'll show it to you. The test classification is where is it? The test classification here. The test classification is a document that I designed to help students write evaluative comments, because I realized that most evaluative comments that we can make can be classified into 4 categories. You can make an evaluation about the type of something, about the elasticity, about the size, or about the time period. Okay, you could essentially say, all right, the answer depends on the type of, let's say, inflation we are dealing with. The answer to the essay question depends on the price elasticity of demand for oil, let's say. The effectiveness of government intervention depends on the size or the importance of government failure, or the importance of bureaucracy, something like that. And let's say whether or not a firm should cut or increase the price of its good depends on whether we are in the short run or in the long run, because this has an impact on the value of the PED. So, and I realized that pretty much all evaluative comments that can be made, they can be classified. They fall into one of these 4 categories. So it provides some scaffolding for the students to write an evaluation. All right, but of course, because writing an essay is something that is very challenging, we will have some dedicated workshops about each assessment objective throughout the entire academic year. I have not yet scheduled them because I feel that this is too early to talk about that. But probably at the end of September, we will start talking about essay writing. All right. All right. Due to the COVID situation, my school is returning back to online teaching. Do you have any particular style of lesson plan suitable for distant teaching? I've not done much distant teaching. This year, we were lucky to be on site during the entire academic year. The year before, I've done 2 months of online teaching. So honestly, I don't have much experience doing it, and I really struggled, to be honest. I really struggled with online teaching simply because it was really, really hard to engage them, to keep them engaged. You could still ask them, all right, please keep your webcam on so I can see you. I can see that you are not doing something else, but honestly, that's really hard, really complicated. Usually my students participate very well in class, but during these online lessons, the level of participation and engagement really dropped. So I'm afraid I will not have many advices to give you, Xiaolu, because of this lack of experience. It's not easy, but perhaps you can ask them to do more job on their own instead, because it's really hard to keep them engaged during the lessons. You can instead turn your lessons in some kind of a support time where you can support your students to help them complete some homework. So you can assign homework in advance, and during your lesson time, instead of teaching the content, or you can just help them to complete the homework, or you can ask them in advance to read to preview the content of the lesson, to read the PPT, to read a chapter of the textbook. And instead of being you talking, because if it's you talking all the time during the online lesson, it's likely that your level of engagement is going to be very low. Perhaps instead of being you talking, you can tell them, all right, so next week we'll talk about this chapter, we'll talk about this PPT, and we will have this student doing a summary of it. Perhaps what you can do is to flip your classroom a bit, to give more, importance, or to give more space to your students, to actually let them do the lesson, to participate more. So then at least you know that they will be prepared for the lessons if they expect that they will be questioned. That's just a first guess, because I'm quite inexperienced at online teaching with students, unfortunately. Yes, Luca, you say I suggest using a flipped classroom approach. That's my point here. Just tell the students that what content is going to be covered, and tell them that you are going to summarize the main points. Give them the material in advance, textbook, chapters of the textbook, PPTs, videos, and get them to summarize the content or something like that. Question them a lot to make sure that they are engaged during your lesson. Are you considering to give more seats over 30 if any weekly workshops is fully booked? Yes. Yes, perhaps, but the problem is that if we are more than 30, it's going to be quite complicated for me to be able to answer everyone's questions. If this happens, then if we collectively agree, this is not going to be only my decision. I will ask everyone's opinion on whether we should increase the number of participants. If we increase the number of participants, then I will reduce the registration fee. That's fair, right? Again, I do not make these workshops to make a profit. So right now it's 50 RMB per workshop. If we increase it, let's say to 40 or 45, then I will reduce the registration fee. Well, I don't know. I just feel like it's fair, but we'll talk about it collectively. The little one has just woken up. All right, thanks. Yes, of course, online teaching is definitely not easy, and I really agree with Luca. I think flipping your classroom, or even if it's not flipping your classroom completely, but at least like giving more room to your students, stepping back. Do not talk for 40 minutes. That's going to be a waste of time. Get them to prepare, come prepared to your online lesson. Get them to do some homework in advance, and then just support them during the lesson, summarize the key ideas and all. I think that's probably the best approach. But again, if anyone else has a more comprehensive experience delivering online lessons, and if everyone has a good idea, then feel free to share. Yeah, well, again, flipping a classroom works very well with some students, some groups of students, and it's going to be way more complicated with others. So just remain flexible. Flexibility, adaptability, these are two key words that makes good teachers, I guess. Adapt, try to know your students, what works. And that's also why, do you remember what I told you about this survey that I ask my students to fill every month? Get to know your students, get to know what works with them, what they think about the lessons, what they would like you to implement, and that's really going to guide you to deliver better lessons. All right, do we have any other questions tonight about, anything, the content we covered together? So let me just briefly summarize what we did. So we talked about All right, we talked about this series of webinars, the objectives, some practical information. I showed you the website. If you do not have an account yet, please create one so you can sign up for the upcoming workshops. Some resources, videos, websites, statistics, PPTs, blah, 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 the rest. We talked about classroom decoration. We talked about, that's still classroom decoration. We talked about the feedback from your students, Econ Joker to practice MCQs, perhaps my best creation so far. Econ Doctor to download the PPTs and other resources. This PPT on my first lesson with the class rules, the stationery, you know, like what are the rules of the game to get a good, the assessment objectives, paper, introducing briefly the papers, the syllabus, my homework policy, the homework tracker, and all these supporting documents. So we did cover quite a lot of content, and I do hope that I answered your questions. Well, I hope that my answers were useful. And I truly hope that this school year is going to go well, especially, yeah, I hope that this COVID situation will improve, so no one has to go through the complexity of online teaching. It is quite complicated, and I hope that everyone can just, you know, like deliver in-class lessons. That's, well, at least to me, that's way more enjoyable first, because we have to enjoy ourselves as teachers, and way more effective for students to learn. Are all units of A2 going to be covered in your course? Everything is going to be covered. Yes, all topics are going to be covered, but of course, the pace of the workshops will vary depending on the complexity of the content. So, which means that challenging topics will, I will go through these topics at a slower pace, and very easy topics. So for example, and when we'll talk about supply and demand for AS, well, I do not really regard this as a very complicated topic, right? When we go through the objectives of firms in A2 or the growth of firms in A2, I don't feel like this is extremely complicated. So I will move much quicker on these topics just to make sure we have enough time to address the most complicated, the most challenging parts of the syllabus. Any other questions? All right, so as I mentioned, the video recording will be available on the website in a couple of hours, because I need to upload it. It's going to take some time, of course. And same thing, in a couple of hours, you will be able to access all the documents. Again, if you have not yet registered, or if you have not registered for today's workshop, you will be able to download all the documents by going to the link or clicking on the link that I typed, that I shared on the chat box a bit earlier today. Again, it's not working yet. I have not yet created it. Just try again in a couple of hours and this should be working. Okay, and if there are no more questions tonight, last question, sorry, I'm going to subscribe to your courses. Regarding the name, do you expect candidates to use their username or name? Please use your name. All right, so let me just, because remember what I emphasized, that's very, very important. Again, otherwise you will have problem. You will have problem because I will not be able to allow you into the Zoom meeting. Today there was no waiting room, but next week there will be a waiting room. So if you please make sure when you go to the website, you click on profile and make sure you display this name. Okay, make sure you display this name, because I can show you what I see. Essentially, when I click on a participant, I see this. Okay, I see your names. If I need to see your names to be able to confirm that you have indeed registered for the workshop. So this one, not your username. Okay, please display the name that appears in your profile. All right. Thanks everyone for joining this first Econ Mentor introduction workshop. And again, if you have registered for the AS and the A2 workshops, perhaps you know that tomorrow I initially scheduled a workshop, an introduction workshop for AS. Okay, today was the introduction workshop for A2, but the content is exactly the same. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna say anything different from what I said today. So I decided to cancel tomorrow's introduction workshop for AS. Okay, because the content that I covered today is relevant for AS and is relevant for A2. I will post a message again, and I will simply share the video recording. So it's not necessary to attend tomorrow's webinar. Okay, all right. Have a nice evening, everyone. And we will meet next Tuesday for A2. And the first topic that we will cover will be efficiency, a very important topic. And for AS, we will meet next Wednesday next week. And the first topics that we will cover together will be the basic economic problem. We'll talk about, of course, needs, wants, scarcity, opportunity cost. We will also talk about economic systems. What is an economic system? What are the main types of economic system? What are the fundamental questions that they have to answer? What are the pros and cons of each system? And what are the issues from transition from a planned economy to a more market-based economy? Have a nice evening, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the week and see you next Tuesday or next Wednesday. Bye, everyone. Good night.